Good morning, my brother.
Great.
Hope you're well.
I'm well. Let me pull your left leg small and ask you. You know, the Ghana Police Service has put a notice out. They say they are looking for a lady and she has a tattoo on the right breast. Have you seen the notice?
Not at all.
Okay, it's okay. Let me not worry you again. Let's go to our conversation. Now, right. I've been looking at the energy sector. And first of all, let me ask you, are you happy with the minister you have been given for your sector?
Thanks once again, Young. And congratulations to the Honorable Minister, John Abdullah Ajinapo. I think he's somebody we have engaged over the period, while he was in opposition, engaging the Committee of Parliament on various issues around oil and gas, mining, and also the power sector. So he's well briefed on the issues, and we are hoping that with that depth of knowledge on how the sector has performed over the years, he will be able to turn things around. But as I keep saying, it's always one thing knowing and another actually delivering. So we're just hoping that, he will translate that knowledge into action to actually ensure that the energy sector recovers from the kind of situation we're in at this moment.
When you say recovers, what situation are we in? You are the expert. Describe for me.
Yeah, so we have a power sector that is heavily reliant on the budget of Ghana. So essentially, the government of Ghana is paying our bill, electricity bill. People consume electricity for free. The agencies are not, particularly ECG, is able to recover revenues in the sector. And because government is the one that guarantees the IPPs and also the fuel suppliers, we have to consistently pay the bills rather than generating power, transmitting, distributing, and making money out of it to pay the value chain. And it's become a huge burden on the state. The projections were in the medium term, we could spend about 97 billion Ghana cedis from the budget to support the energy sector. You look at fiscal infrastructure, we are doing less than 50 billion over the same medium-term projection. So it is not efficient for us to sacrifice all we have to keep the light on when, in a natural sense, it should be treated as business for the money to be recovered and the value chain paid. So that is the kind of critical situation we're in, and we're hoping that we'll be able to turn around ECG, make them much more responsible and efficient to deliver value, so that we can focus on using the budget to develop the country. On the upstream side, investment has declined quite significantly over the years. We've seen oil production drop from about 170 barrels per day to now around 130,000 barrels a day. That's contrary to expectation that around this time we should be inching closer to 500,000 barrels of oil. But, behavior, institutional inefficiency made it difficult for that investment to come. And we're hoping that he will sort of, issue executive decision to reverse some of the bottlenecks and allow investment to come in, to help produce more energy, both oil and gas. Because we're also running short of gas. Our consumption is growing, and we need more gas to be able to generate electricity. And the domestic sources will be a more stable supply.
I see. Let me bring in my namesake, John Awuni, Executive Chairman of FFBAG. John, good morning. Thank you for your time.
Welcome. And Happy New Year.
Now, you manage Food and Beverage Association of Ghana as chairman. This your new minister, Mr. Eric Opoku. How do you find him? Well positioned to lead you?
I think our industry cuts across about three ministries,
Right.
so to say.
There's trade, there's tourism.
Then we have trade, agri, and then finance.
Right.
I listened to the Honorable Eric Opoku's vetting, and me as an expert in the industry, especially in the area of agri and trade, I think in the area of agri, his answers were quite very good, and some of the ideas I had in terms of promoting increased food production and solving some of our agricultural problems, he highlighted them. I also listened to the Minister of Trade, the Honorable Elizabeth Ajare, and then I think that she was also quite good. And of course, my good friend, Honorable Dr. Atu Forsen, also okay. But the talk is normally different from the doing, because clearly expectations were similarly very, very high. In the previous regime, where the finance minister talked about, even before he became finance minister, they were all over the place demonstrating competence and all that, and talking about moving the country from taxation to production. And what we eventually found out was the opposite. They moved the country from production to complete taxation, leading to the collapse of many industries and increased levels of employment. So our hope is that the answers these people have provided in the vetting rooms, they will walk the talk and they will even do much more better. Because in Ghana, what I have known over the years is that easier said than done.
Right.
And so I am hoping that when they come in, they will put nation first, will be patriotic enough to move the agenda of the country forward than pursuing personal interest, as it has always been. If we do that, then I think that the problems of the industry will be very well solved. And talking about the problems of the industry, I'll give you three anchors or three drivers of activities in the industry. One has to do with the stability of the currency, the exchange rate for that matter. Then two have to do with the number two has to do with the issue of taxes. So the stability of the exchange rate is a major driver that will deal with the number two has to do with the level of taxes. And then the third one would be the general government policy.
Right.
In terms of government cooperation with the private sector.
I see.
Because it is always said that the private sector is the engine of growth. So if the government does not have the mindset of cooperating with the private sector and begin to be like a competitor with the private sector, that at the end of the day, the private sector will be crowded out in every respect. And the government will not be able to achieve much. And so as the government talked about the issue of 24-hour economy, the 24-hour economy can only happen if the private sector booms. If there's an increase in government cooperation with the private sector, and activities in the private sector increases, leading to increased production, leading to increased demand first, which will then force production to go up, that the 24-hour economy then can work. But 24-hour economy cannot work when demand does not increase.
I see.
When demand does not increase, nobody will end up producing. You only can sell 24 hours when demand increases. So it is this is the work of the government to increase demand. And how does the government increase demand?
Tell me.
Yep. Hello?
Yes. Let me bring in Mr. Ben Boachi and ask him. So, Mr. Boachi, people have really been concerned about the price of fuel. And the minister minister for the sector, and I've heard Lawyer Digi Tamaklo is going to the MPA, talks about better pricing and constant supply of fuel. Are they speaking the language, or are they just throwing stuff about?
There are room for improvement. I think for me, the focus at all times should be how we constantly keep government out of the business and deepen, the deregulation of the space to ensure that the market competition drives down prices for the consumer. What we have seen in the past, or even in current situation, is that there is a lot of intervention from the regulator, levying the consumer at various levels, some of which we even think that could be tax revenue that allows the government to invest in the alternatives. We cannot continue to make it extremely important for everybody to own a car in Ghana because we don't have the alternative. And the way to do it is to be able to use the tax revenues that are on petroleum products to provide those, mass transit, rail lines, fast moving vehicles that allows people to commute from one point to the other, so that we don't have to make it, the number one option for people to drive across our cities and our country. So that's what we're hoping to see. In most part of the world, a lot of tax revenue is generated from the downstream to empower the economy and provide some of these safety nets for our people. Because if the volatilities in the market continues, it's difficult for government to intervene. But if you have some of those opportunities for people to move, if I can't fuel my vehicle, I know that there's a transport system that is clean enough to jump in at all times and be able to commute from one point to the other. So that is the next level that we really have to get to, liberalizing the space much more, reducing the intervention of the regulator, imposing too many levies, and then converting some of them into tax revenues for us to be able to engineer some of these development efforts.
John, let me bring you into the conversation. There's a conversation around food inflation, how expensive it is, and how it has become expensive to even eat at your favorite restaurant or chop bars, or where you, the experts, ply your trade with felicity of style. How do we get the minister to ensure that food inflation doesn't become a big issue within this tenure?
Thank you. Very excellent question. I think I mentioned trade drivers. Of the activities in the private sector, in particular in our sector. I talked about the issue of the exchange rate, and I talked about the issue of taxes and then government policy. I'm expecting practically, number one, the finance minister having taken office, and then the trade minister as well. If I were in the position of the trade minister or even the finance minister, I would have organized a major meeting with the private sector, leaders of the private sector, the food and beverages industry and all that. I will meet them and tell them that, number one, my vision is that I want prices to come down. I want prices to drop. If they are not even dropping, they should stay stable. Because to be very honest with you, I am in the industry myself, and I find the prices just very abnormal. Hotel prices are extremely high when you compare to what we have in the international in other countries. Food prices are high, everything, and it appears that our government have just let the citizens to just be at the mercy of traders and businesses. Today, you go into the Makola market or the Medina market or any market, and the price is different from what you budgeted for it yesterday. Prices just keep changing in what we call, like in economics, like galloping inflation. You can really not predict the price of any product in the Ghanaian market. Today it is 30 cedis for a product. Tomorrow it's 35 or 40 or 50 or whatever not. And these things keep happening. Now, the Bible talks about the fact that make the vision plain, and they that read it shall run with it. The finance minister has a vision, the trade minister has a vision, the agric minister has a vision. If I were one of them, I would just not go into the office as usual they have done in ages and just start running a vision without sharing that vision with your stakeholders. I would meet with the relevant stakeholders, share with them my relevant vision, and ask them how they can help me to achieve the relevant vision. In terms of drop in prices, what I will listen to the traders. What is the driver for rice prices? What is the driver for general food prices? What is the driver for whatever general provisions and then all that? Let them tell us, let the mail come, let me not mention it, let the general, those stakeholders tell us what drives these prices up. And then based on that, we will now dialogue on what can let these prices drop. And then that's how I will begin my office with. And then having done that, I will have practical understanding of whatever it is, rather than for years.
Right.
Ministers enter into government and then they label some people in the private sectors as enemies of the state.
I see.
They even classify some group of businesses as mafia and cartel and whatever not. And they go in there with this kind of mindset. And then so they go in and then they consider them as enemies. And at the end of the day, they never share vision with them. They never do anything. And at the end of the day, they end up failing. I would think that the first steps of any of the ministers to meet their relevant stakeholders, let them buy into their vision.
Right.
For instance, if I were to take the agric minister, I would let the agric minister who wants to boost food production, I had an idea to share with him, the Honorable Orage Opoku. I believe at the appropriate time I will meet him, but I had an idea to share with him for us to launch a national feeding program, a national farm program. And I think he mentioned it in his vector. Every household must have a farm, a garden. Like I have a garden in my house. I don't buy cassava again, lettuce, cabbage, whatever I don't have. Let them remove all the grasses, the green grasses, and turn them into farms. There's no reason why we should import tomato into this country. No reason why we should import lettuce into this country. No reason why we should import cabbage into this country. But then there are NGOs in the system. If you look at the number of NGOs in this country, my brother, you cannot count them. It's like they are all operating at cross purposes from the purpose of the government. So if I were the minister, I will assemble all NGOs, share my vision with them. I let them align their programs with my program. And then at the end of it, because if NGOs could really alleviate poverty in this country, that this country should have been devoid of poverty.
I see. Let me bring in Ben and ask Ben. Sorry, we lost Ben Boachi on the line. If we can raise him back quickly. I want to find out Ben's thoughts on the gold for oil. But John, you are here with me.
If I could just continue, because the answer you gave, the question you asked, you talk about how to drive down the price.
Right. Go ahead, John. Go ahead.
Government policy, collaborating with the private sector.
Right.
But then the other critical, if you haven't done collaboration with the private sector, share your issue with the private sector and let them run with it. Number two thing is basically to the taxes. And that is very, very, very critical, because you buy products and the tax element of it is over 50%. I am very much happy that the government wants to remove the COVID levy. But the COVID levy, if they remove it, they should not convert it into another tax in the name of another something. Because if you remove COVID levy 1%, prices will drop by 1%. Then the then minister also introduced excise tax on fruit juices, excise tax on drinks and whatever not. That has hit very hard in the beverage industry. That has to be reversed so as to boost production. As I speak now, most industries in the beverage are operating below capacity, about an average of about 38%.
Right.
Because of this particular tax. If this tax is removed, you will say that you are going to lose revenue, but that will not be it. At the end of the day, they will revert back to their old production that level, about 80-90%, and that will eventually be achieved. You will eventually be achieving your objective of 24-hour economy And then also, it will lead to increase in production, increased demand, increased sales, and all that. And then at the end of the day, it will lead to increased revenue, increased employment. So, if I were the one, you say that, well, if you remove this, how you going to, people ask how you going to fill in the gap?
That's right.
You fill in the gap by kickstarting increased demand. Demand will increase, and when demand increases, definitely the tax revenue will go up. General economic literature shows that if you higher taxes will not necessarily rake in higher revenue. The higher the tax, the higher the interest to evade the tax. The higher the tax, the higher, the lower the demand. And so if the government were to look at reversing some of these taxes and then observe over a 3-4 month period, I am 100% very sure that there will be increased demand and there will be increased revenue. People would like to prefer to comply with the payment of taxes rather than evading. Because the evasion is more riskier. But when you look at it, that the higher the tax, it's the only way you can produce, the only way you can sell, the only way you can survive in the market is to evade the tax. So you pay some of the money to the tax officers, and then at the end of the day, you can be able to survive the market. And that is it. And as I speak now, there is massive, because of higher taxes in the country, there's massive smuggling of goods through the Togo border. There is massive. People are, because the change of government and systems are not in place, people are just stockpiling through illegal this. So for if the government does not intervene, as immediately in the next 2-3 months, people will not be importing because they have already imported through illegal means, and they will stock it and then be selling below the minus the taxes, or they even sell up at the tax rate and then use the money, and that will be making supernormal profit. So this is a major thing that immediately the government will need to close down to make sure that they tighten the border to ensure that this illegal people don't import through illegal things. But then they must watch the level of taxation. The level of taxation is a great motivation to evasion of taxes in the country. The excise tax that the then Minister of Finance forcefully put against the interest of industry, that has to be removed. The corporate levy and other taxes, they need to just look at it and then rather push for more tax compliance. Lower taxes, more tax compliance. That will drive prices down, and that will let the ordinary citizen, the foot soldier who voted massively for them, for the government, will be able to see the benefits of it. Then the next major thing they should look at is the stabilization of the currency.
Right.
As we speak now, the currency is a major dictator of prices in the marketplace. People change prices in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening based on the exchange rate. You can go to the Forex Bureau this morning. They'll tell you that a CD is 15 cedis to $1. And then in the afternoon, they'll tell you that for 1 hour time, they'll tell you that it's 16 cedis to $1. It is just something else. And as they begin to change like this, then the market people also begin to change their prices. In fact, products that have nothing to do with dollar also even say use dollar as excuse. You go to buy pepper, and I'm not using pepper just for funny sake.
Right.
I am telling you this is real because I am there down in the market. You go to buy pepper, go to buy okra, and the price changes because the dollar has changed. And that is something that the government needs to really work on.
Right.
The market must, we operate a free market system, but the market must just not be let out there that people can do whatever they can, and that your citizens are left at the mercy of let me say, unscrupulous people.
Right. Thank you, John Awuni. We are grateful for your time. He's the executive chairman of the Food and Beverages Association of Ghana. Thank you, John. My namesake.
Welcome.
From John, we go to Kofi Asari of the Africa Education Watch. Kofi, good morning. Thank you for your time.
Hi, good morning.
Are you happy with the minister you got for your sector?
Why not? We are very happy.
FM, the best in the morning.
What would you be demanding of him in his first few months in office? What does he have to fix, correct, reset, upgrade? Tell me about it.
Well, before I go to the first few months in office, we expect that as he assumes office, there are 4 key principles that are key if he wants to succeed. The first to be guided by the principle of inclusive policy governance.
I see.
So, if decisions are taken single-handedly, if he doesn't listen, and then he doesn't consult, then it becomes difficult for policies to succeed. And so inclusive policy governance is key. Second is transparency and accountability. We have a ministry that has hardly produced an education sector performance report publicly. Publicly made it available in about 7 years. It's always a whole project trying to get a report of the ministry. Everything is secret. Nothing on the website. So it's important for him to embrace transparency and accountability. How you account for the people you are supposed to serve is, among others, to document, compile what you have done, and then measure it against the targets, and then publish it for all citizens to see. This shouldn't be a tug of war or another project. And so we expect him to embrace transparency and accountability. The third is spending efficiency. There's a lot required to fix the education sector or the system. But there's also a scarcity of resources. You will never get what you want. The past 7 years, we had close to 19% of the national budget being spent on education, which is significant. But the challenges continue to double. It tells us that how you spend what you have is very important. So spending efficiency is the third principle that he must uphold. And then finally, as he comes into office, he must have in mind that the biggest problem in the education sector is the rural-urban divide. The rural-urban divide.
Right.
We have run a sector for almost a century, or half a century, where the situation in northern part of the country and and western north and then Moti is totally different from the rest of the country in terms of teaching and learning resources, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of educational outcomes. So we should aim to see through an equitable distribution of resources to balance and create equality in the sector. These are the 4 principles that I hope he upholds if he wants to succeed in his tenure.
But then the conversation about free SHS and whether to ask people who can afford to pay for it is on the table now. What does the sector think, and what should the minister do? How should he approach?
I'm not sure which table it's on. From where I sit, the NDC is clearing their manifesto, and they are doing 3 things about free senior high school. 3 major things. The first is to end the road tracks. Second is to include private schools in the free senior high school program. And the third is to decentralize feeding. So I'm not too sure if that conversation is yet on the table. We are working. We work with political parties in developing their manifestos. So after doing that, the party that wins, we support that party to transition promises to policy. And so we are clear in our mind about what the key issues are for secondary. It doesn't include that, even though people may have various positions, including Edward, that would believe that free senior must be targeted. But remember the journey, I told you something a year ago, that the only government that can review free senior high school and allow people to pay is the government that started the policy.
I see.
Because of the way it has over-politicized it. And so, politically, it is only that government that can review it because of the politics around it. And time will tell us that it is true. No government can come and attempt to ask those who can pay to pay because of the politics or the politicized nature of the policy.
I see.
That's the third way, but that's it. It's not only in Ghana. In Uganda, it's a similar one. Nothing can change unless the government itself ask people who can pay to pay. And all over Africa, where we have this wholesale thing, and when the free senior school policy was conceived on the political platform, a campaign platform, like the Uganda case, like the Kenya case, similar problem. So reforms that will let some people pay is always politically, suicidal, and only the government that conceived the policy can do that.
Kofi Asare of Africa Education Watch, I thank you very much indeed for your time. Grateful. Next, we go to Professor John Gachi. He's an economist, a finance guru, and is a teacher of many students who attest to his legendary. Prof, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine, thank you.
Now, this, your finance space, you have a new minister. What do you think of your minister?
I don't understand the question.
Prof, it's a very simple question. Your new minister, does he fit the bill?
A minister who has been approved by Parliament. I do not think that anybody has the right to doubt his pedigree, his ability to manage the finances. I believe that is the essence of the vetting. And he has passed the vetting without any issue. So I do not think that we should be discussing about his fitness of the office, but what he wants to do to propel the growth of the country, to resolve the problems of inflation,
right,
and to make sure that interest rates are accommodated,
right,
and exchange rate is stable, and then create an environment that productivity will be enhanced across board. Manage our debt well,
right,
and then look for alternative sources of financing our activities. I think that is what is expected of the finance minister now.
Now, we know that we owe so much, and some of our debt has even been postponed. The charge from the president to the finance minister was to bring our debt down and also to make sure that we are in a good place. How should he proceed?
Well, he will proceed from multiple trajectory. Number one, he will need to look at the debt management architecture that we have to ensure that the debt management strategy is in the interest of the economy. Then he also needs to look for funding from sources that are described to be concessionary, especially given that we are just out of debt default. It is proper that we pivot towards concessionary borrowing from bilateral sources and from some multilateral sources. Again, this is the time that the finance minister should bring on board alternative sources of funding. Number one, we have explored the World Bank to finance development activities, and they continue to give us assurance that they will continue to do so. We also have other development finance institutions apart from the World Bank, African Development Bank. In this case, I'm talking particularly about Islamic Development Bank, which also has financial resources to support countries that are members of that institution, just like we are a member of the World Bank. So this is something that the finance minister should vigorously pursue to achieve.
Right.
Then, in the space of financing, the finance minister should also make practical the engagement with public-private partnership arrangement, and this public-private partnership arrangement is in line with Islamic finance.
Right.
So I believe that it's not only from one source. It will open up to multiple sources to finance activity.
Right.
As the government takes steps to cut in expenditure to allow for productive expenditure to prevail. Right now, if you look at our budget, even if you take the 3-month budget that have been approved as a case to project into the future, you realize that amortization, arrears, plus interest payment is taking about 35.5% of the budget, and then about 24% for compensation, and just around 5.5% for capital expenditure. That must change. And you can only change if you cut expenditure that is not productive. Change when you now open your arms to very solid alternative financing to be added to the pool of sources of funding for the country. So this is what I am expecting him to do.
Now, in terms of growing our cedi to make it resilient against foreign currencies, the dollar, euro, pound, and we have complained about the inflation and all those conversations. But first, let's talk about growing our cedi. What should he do to grow our cedi?
Well, I think any discussion we have concerning the cedi, whether complex, exotic, or simple, to only be reduced into one sentence: supply and demand.
Right.
Demand and supply. So we need to work to tame the demand for the cedi. So any policy that will result in, controlling the demand for the cedi is what the finance minister should be pursuing. And any policy that will enhance the supply of the foreign currency, that is what the finance minister should be pursuing.
Right.
So, in simple terms, that is the answer. No matter the discussion, that is what we will arrive at.
And now let's look at how do we cut down on our imports so that our currency can breathe. How should the finance minister be progressing in terms of collaboration with, for example, the trade ministry and other agencies that can help bring down our excessive imports? What do you say, Prof?
Okay, so we just have to do a simple calculation. How much poultry do we import into the country? The feeding of the SHS. What component is imported, and what component of that importation that we can produce in the country? These are the analyses we need to make.
Now, all the sectors, if you listen to the ministers designate...
If I may add...
Sorry, go ahead, please.
If you go to rice importation,
right,
we are net importers of rice.
Right, chicken, oil.
Palm oil, everything. We are net importers.
Right.
In fact, when you look at the trading relations, even with our neighbors, we are net importers of almost everything. If you go to Africa, it's the same thing. Our foreign partners that we trade with, we are net importers of almost everything. So if we are minded to target these things and provide incentive for them, we will be reviving production in the country, we will be limiting import, we will be reducing the demand for foreign currency, and we will be making jobs available to our people. So that is that is it. No matter what you discuss, it will be reduced what I'm concluding with.
Right. Prof, every sector of our economy, if you listen to the ministers designate, they tell you there's a problem, they are all demanding. What should be the key focus in terms of trying to sort out bills that are owed in terms of the ministry? what should be the focus of Dr. Kesel Atu-Forson as finance minister? Because everybody is asking for their pound of their flesh. They are asking for a piece of the cake, but where should it look first?
Sunrise
well, I
on
think
3 FM.
it's not where you should look first, but how you balance these things.
Okay.
Because take arrears, for example. Those arrears that have been mentioned, we shouldn't think that those are monies that the contractors have just given to finance their contract and they are waiting for government to pay them. You should also think that those money are monies taken from our various financial institutions. So, as you are not paying beyond 90 days, those monies are crystallizing into non-performing loan. So arrears have a great contribution towards non-performing loan profile of the country. And so if you are not able to balance between payment of the arrears and other obligations, you will be creating a fragile banking sector that will not be able to finance your activities continuously. So for me, I look at it from a balanced approach, not just focusing on one. You need to renegotiate the energy sector debts. Those that you can pay, you pay them. And then you also look at other areas, you clear some of them to bring a balance in the economy.
Prof, I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
That's Professor John Gachi of the UCC joining us here. Now, let's listen to the President of the Republic as he charged his ministers to go out there and perform. Listen.
And so the oath of allegiance. I do in the name of the Almighty God swear that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Republic of Ghana as by law established. That I will uphold the sovereignty and integrity of Ghana. And that I will preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. So help me God. We now move to the oath of a Minister of State. And it follows the same pattern. I, having been appointed Minister of State of the Republic of Ghana, do in the name of the Almighty God swear that I will at all times well and truly serve the Republic of Ghana in the office of Minister of State, and that I will uphold, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana as by law established, and that I will, to the best of my judgment, at all times, when required, freely give my counsel and advice for the good management of the public affairs of the Republic of Ghana, and that I will not directly or indirectly reveal any matters that shall come to my knowledge in the discharge of my duties and committed to my secrecy as Minister of State. So help me God. Now you take the oath of secrecy, and it follows the same pattern, but this time you mention the office that you have been assigned to. So I, holding the office of Minister of Justice and Attorney General, do in the name of the Almighty God swear that I will not directly or indirectly communicate or reveal to any person any matter which shall be brought under my consideration or shall come to my knowledge in the discharge of my official duties, except as may be required for the discharge of my official duties, or as may be specially permitted by law. So help me God. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Presidency, national executives of our party, family and friends of the newly sworn-in ministers. Exactly 2 weeks ago, I took the same solemn oath before the people of Ghana that was taken by others before me to assume the leadership of this country as president. During the campaign before the elections, I made a pact with the people of Ghana to nominate ministers to my government within 14 days of being sworn in. And I had every intention of keeping that promise. 14 days after I took the oath of office, which was yesterday, that promise stood fulfilled. I had presented to the Right Honorable Speaker of Parliament names of 23 sector ministers, 3 ministers of state, and 16 regional ministers for the approval of Parliament. So far, I've named 42 ministers of state and regional ministers to begin the urgent task of resetting our dear country Ghana, which has suffered in recent years from severe crisis in many sectors. As the ministers are approved by Parliament and as they are sworn in, I'll proceed to name deputy ministers for some of the ministries, which will bring the total ministers to 60, as I promised the people of Ghana. This will make this government Ghana's leanest and I believe most efficient government ever in history. I've just sworn you in the first 6 ministers who are responsible for perhaps the most critical sectors of our national life, especially economy and the energy sector. In economy, the people of Ghana are looking up to you, Dr. Forson, to reduce inflation and make life more affordable, reduce the cost of living. They're looking up to you to bring our debt level to bring our national debt to sustainable levels. They're looking to you to stabilize our currency. And they're looking to you to rein in the deficit so that we can achieve macroeconomic stability. To you, the Honorable Minister of Energy, Mr. John Ablai Jinapong, Ghanaians are looking for stable and efficient power supply. They're looking to you to accelerate our upstream and downstream petroleum sectors in order that Ghanaians can reap the benefit of the potential that God has given us. They're also looking to you to manage the energy sector debt and be able to remove it as an albatross around the neck of our economy. To you, Mr. Eric Opoku-Agric, Ghanaians are looking for food security and they're looking for cheap and affordable food to fill their stomachs. To you, Mr. Govans Abuja, you probably have one of the most difficult jobs. Everybody in Ghana is complaining about bad roads. You have the duty not only to maintain existing roads, but to provide new roads for smooth transportation. And probably one of the most difficult and complex sectors, and that is education. The Honorable Haruna Idrisu is supposed to work for the people of Ghana to ensure quality education and to ensure that we equip our young people with the skills that they need to go into the world of work. And one of your first responsibilities will be to superintend the National Review Conference on Education, to bring stakeholders together to dialogue on how to improve our educational outcomes. Attorney General will be required to reform our justice system to make it fair and transparent to all Ghanaians. We will also be responsible for holding people accountable and making sure that the sword of justice goes after people who have misappropriated the resources of Ghanaians. One of the major tasks you would have to undertake is to shepherd the National Constitutional Validation Conference in order that we can begin amendment of our Constitution to make it a living document for the future. Ladies and gentlemen, long before the elections, we were aware of the parlous state of our economy, and we made specific pledges to address same. The energy sector is also riddled with many hydra-headed problems, threatening its very survival. Already we've been at work since my first day in office to tackle these problems. Indeed, you elected us to confront and resolve such challenges. As you may all be aware, the previous government did not work to ensure the smooth running of the energy sector by neglecting to arrange enough fuel to power our thermal plants. This was important because of the known scheduled maintenance work that was to take place on the West African gas pipeline.
I see. Well, that's President John Dramani Mahama, President of the Republic. It's 25 minutes after 9. Lawyer Martin Kpebu is a private legal practitioner. He's a member of the Operation Recover or Loot body. He joins us on the phone line now. Counsel, good morning. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Hughes.
Yes, sir.
Or I should call you Johnny, like Ado calls DM President Johnny.
Well, anyone goes for me. I'm okay with you. Counsel, okay. First of all, tell me, oral, are we getting closer to recovering? Because this morning I recovered a vehicle that was taken from National Theatre and it has been brought back. What are we recovering?
I should say yes, we are getting closer because you must gather petitions, gather evidence, gather information before you can do the actual recovery.
Right.
So since we are in stage 1 of gathering information, gathering petitions, evidence, yes, it's closer. It's closer because they say a journey of 1,000 miles begins with the very first step. So we are on good course. Yes, but on the matter of citizens being able to recover vehicles like you have done, other properties, etc. Yes, that is our law. Our law empowers every citizen of Ghana, not just every citizen, every person. So every person as well within Ghana, whether a citizen or not.
Right.
If you see a crime being committed or has been committed, you are allowed to arrest the person who has committed the crime and take him to the police station. So if somebody steals a vehicle and you've seen it and you're able to recover it, yes, you are allowed to take it to the police station so that then the police will continue. If it's a corruption case, you take to OSP, etc., etc.
The vehicle is parked at the National Theatre now as we speak. They said they couldn't find it, but we found it and we took it back.
Wow, congrats. You are the community man, so I'm not surprised.
We will take it there for you, then you will see the vehicle. Now, the Attorney General, who has just been sworn in, Dr. Ine, says he will receive your reports and work on them, as it were, using the right legal means. How does that sound to you?
That is the law. Yes, he couldn't have put it better because we're a country of laws. So when he receives our reports, normally he has to take that through the right legal means. So they will now do investigations properly so-called, and then possibly prosecute. But for those that are prosecutable, other ones that are not prosecutable because there's no evidence, I'm sure we'll do other things. He will do other things within the law. So that's the law that he's basically laid out, that there must be due process, because we've all agreed that we couldn't have just, based on the information we've received, gone to, somebody's house to start beating the person or take the person to a sawam. It's not allowed under the law.
Right.
Yes.
Now, let's look at the ministers that we have and the charge that the president gave to the new ministers. He gave them specific roles. What do you think?
Yes, so that is it. Article 58 vests all the executive power, administration of the laws of the country, administration of the country, everything in the president's hands, right? So, and he too is one human being. He can't do all of the work. So, they have to call him into a meeting, so I'll wind down in a minute. So he has to get people to do the work, to help him. And so each ministry has its own mandate, and that's rightly what he's done. And if I may run ahead to the Justice Ministry, I'm happy the President has mentioned that he should see to fair justice, etc.
Right.
We are very, very interested in that, because we don't want people persecuting others like we saw in the last administration. Remember, there are two forcing case. Even when the foreigners were saying they want to return the money to Ghana,
right?
Godfrey Dami insisted on prosecution. We don't do that. We need the money. I'm not saying prosecution is not important, but where we are making suffering like this, and our two forcing is a public servant helping the state, etc. Sometimes take the money. It's also in the public interest. Can you imagine that over 2 million euros, what it could have done for the country, etc.? So that is what I think is good. The president has charged them to deliver their mandate. And maybe we can do the interview, continue later in the afternoon. Ora is in Tamale, so we are before the Bakema. So please,
I see you are in my town where I'm chief.
Okay.
Dasiba.
Okay, thank you.
Kawula.
Thank you. Nah.
Tumabi Ula. Martin Pebu there is a private legal practitioner. He joined us here. We'll take a quick break. When we return from this break, we'll try and connect with some of the new ministers who have just been giving their roles and ask them one or two questions. Stay with us here on Sunrise on 3FM 92.7. We'll be right back.
Freezer, yeah, diaba. Adama for diaba.